Well, hello there. My name is Christopher Scott, and I am a small groups pastor of a local church. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the book of Second John, right? So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the author of Second John, the audience, who he was writing to, the date of when the book was written, the letter was written. I'm going to talk about the key verse of the book, the theme of the book, and then give you an outline of the book. So 6 basic areas that we're going to look at as it relates to Second John, right? So Second John, the author is the disciple and apostle John, the disciple John, which is the John that traveled with Jesus and was one of the 12 disciples, and the apostle John that helped to establish and lead the early church, particularly in Asia Minor is where he did a lot of his ministry with, right? With the churches in Asia Minor there. So there's the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. There's 7 churches addressed there that are in the Romans Road in Asia Minor. That is the area that John likely ministered in, and that relates to the audience, right? So that's the author, John. We know that John is the author because he talks about being the elder, which matches being an apostle. We also have a lot of evidence from church fathers and people that maybe knew John, like Polycarp, that testified that this letter was written by John the apostle, the disciple, right? So the audience that John writes to in 2 John is he writes to this quote-unquote lady, right? He talks about this lady right there at the beginning of the letter, the first couple verses. And there usually is 2 views on the lady, right? Either it could be a single woman, a lady, or he could be using lady to refer to a church and a group of believers, right? Most people will say that he's writing to someone, a woman that he knows that is a leader and has a house church and who organizes some church ministry, right? So that's what a lot of people would say, is that he has a specific woman in mind that he's writing this to. So that's the audience of the book. The book was written in between 85 and 90 AD. So it was one of the last books of the Bible written. A lot of people will say that the book of Revelation is the last book of the New Testament written in 95 AD. And we know that John wrote his gospel, his first letter, second and third letter, all around 85 to 90 AD. So they're towards the end of the New Testament. A lot of the New Testament has already been written. Now, to outline this 1-chapter book is pretty easy, right? So you can outline it into 4 sections. The first 3 verses are an introduction. Then verses 4 through 6 talked about practicing the truth, right? Practicing the truth of the gospel. Then verses 7 through 11 talk about protecting the truth. And then verses 12 and 13 is just a basic conclusion to the letter. So that's a basic way that you can outline this book that Warren Wiersbe gives in his commentary to the letter of 2 John, right? A key verse for the book is verse 4. So 2 John 4 says, John writes, how happy I was to meet some of your children. So he's writing to this woman who has children, right? Probably physical children as well as spiritual children in the faith, right? How happy I was to meet some of your children and to find them living according to the truth, just as the Father commanded. So that's kind of ties into the theme of this letter, is that we're to be loving and living the truth. And that seems to be what gives John pleasure and enjoyment, is that he knows this woman and her children are practicing the truth and living it out in their lives. An additional thing that you want to pay attention to in this letter is how in the first century church there was some beliefs starting to become popularized called Gnosticism or Docetism, which basically said, yes, Jesus was God. God was here on earth, but he wasn't actually a man. He wasn't actually fully human, right? He only looked human, or he only appeared human, or he only kind of he was like a ghost, right? It was God here. And so in this letter, you see that it talks about, John will use these phrases, we saw him, we touched him, we saw that he was here. And that's something that you want to be aware of as you read this book. And you need to know part of our Trinitarian faith, part of the Christian faith that believes in the Trinity, one God with one essence but consisting of 3 persons, means that Jesus Christ was fully God that came to earth, but he also was fully human, which is why we accept his sacrifice on behalf of us. So that's really something important that you want to look at and just beware of as you study the book. So It'll usually some commentaries will give you a little background on that as well. So my name is Christopher Scott. I appreciate you watching this video, as it's a brief introduction to the letter of 2 John. A lot of people call it like a postage stamp book, right? It's just a pretty short little book, only 13 verses. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to study the book of 2 John with a small group, I recommend the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Series. This book Bible study series is called Beware of Religious Imposters. It covers 2 Peter, 2 John, 3 John, and Jude. And it's 8 weeks. It's a good study. And I like the Wiersbe studies because they're really solid and in-depth. And they also come with a commentary that goes alongside with the study to help the facilitator. So I'll put links to both of these in the comments down below. And hope to catch you again on another video. If you like what you saw and you want to subscribe, you can do that up here. You can find other 5-minute introductions to books of the Bible up there. You can find some how-to videos on how to use the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Series down here, and you can find some small group tips down here on how to facilitate and lead a small group. My name is Christopher Scott. Thanks for watching. Hope to catch you again in another video.